Law Talk with Nick Maruchak. Thanks to MKI Legal, your trusted employment and family lawyers.
I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
And Nick Maruchak joins us right now. How are you, mate?
Good, Gary.
You're well. Are you a computer buff, by the way?
I am. Yes, I love computers.
When he says things like NVIDIA, does that ring a bell to you?
It does, yeah. I learned how to program myself as well. During COVID, I learned the Python programming language and I'm really into it. Yeah.
Right. So when I say you've got to get an NVIDIA processor in your computer, you know a chip, you know exactly what he's talking about. $30 billion worth of them.
Yeah. I actually look, because our firm really is into AI and large language models, and some of these chips cost 12 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand just for a chip to run these AI models on. It's a lot of money they're making.
I am really going to have to catch up, aren't I? All right. I tell you what, we'll come back. I know we're going to talk in a minute about Kevin Townley, the manager of the Little Ferry Co, and his issues around trying to access any surveillance vision of a boat that hit his. So we'll come back to that in a sec. But because Shane's been waiting patiently, 133 882. If you'd like to ask Nick Maruchak a question, please give us a call now. No problem if you want some guidance on some legal issues. G'day, Shane.
Hey, Gary. Nick, how are you?
Good. How can we help?
I've got an industrial property which I've owned. Me and my wife have owned 50% of with a friend of ours for pretty well 30 years. We've had a bit of a few dramas with it. It got burnt down. We've rebuilt it and everything else. And I want to sell. Now, we had a handshake agreement 30 years ago that if someone wanted to sell, then the other party would agree. And the other party has said, no, I don't want to. And I just trying to work out how I can get out of it. Now, I actually still run out of that side of my side of the business, and he rents his side out. And he's also just recently rented out the rest of the yard to another party for what I have no idea. He hasn't actually informed me what he's getting for it, and it's become a bit of a bugbear. Now, I'm just wondering how I can get out of it and whether I can do a dissolution of partnership and just go, I'm out, I'm done.
Okay, interesting. So this property, the main asset is this industrial premises. How is that property owned? Is everyone's names personally on the title, or does a business own it?
No, everyone's names are personally on the title.
Okay, easy. So you and your wife own 50%, right? And your friend owns the other 50%. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you own a 50-50 share of property, doesn't matter what type of property, in WA, you can force a sale if you have a minimum 50%. So you can make an application to the Supreme Court and you can force the property to be sold. There's a process under the Property Law Act that deals with that. So because this is not a business asset, dissolving the partnership, it's not that kind of area of law. It will just be a simple application to the Supreme Court to force a sale under the Property Law Act. That's one way out of it. Do you have a business with him?
No.
Okay. So I would speak to a property lawyer about that, and there is a mechanism. If you have less than 50%, you can't do it, but you've got that minimum 50%. As long as you and your wife, who both own that 50% share, are in support of selling it. So the first thing I'd recommend is write to him and say, under the Property Law Act, you have a 50% share, you want to sell it. See if he'll reconsider his position. If he doesn't, then you make an application to the court. You put an affidavit together. You'll tell them all the steps you've taken, and then you can sell it. So, but I'll speak to a property lawyer first about that before you jump in. And one property lawyer I can recommend is David McMullen, who is also the mayor of Subiaco.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
He's a part-time lawyer and a mayor, so he's really good.
David McMullen is the name.
The other problem I have is that he's been renting his side out. I've been occupying my side, and he's just started renting his side out, and then he's just allowed somebody else to take over the yard without my permission and without He's obviously getting something out of it, which he hasn't informed me of. And, yeah.
So are you worried about whether you're losing an income? Because what's more important is it...
Yeah, the income. It's just the fact that he's just allowed someone to take over the yard. He's actually stopped my access to a fair bit of my yard and to a fair bit of my property.
Right. Okay.
And every time I sort of try and go, he actually told me this guy was going to be there for a couple of months and he was doing it for a favour. It's now been probably 8 months, and I've since found out that he is actually gaining from it. I'm not sure exactly how.
Right. But it does sound like what Nick's talking about is the way out of this is to force that sale.
Mm-hmm.
Before I let you go, though, I'll just ask Nick this one question. So, there might be that complicating issue of someone else getting access to the yard and that's annoying you, but you just got to get out of it by sale. Can the other party appeal that forced sale?
Well, if there's a tenant, and there's two issues here. One is did the other person have authority to enter into the lease with the tenant?
With this other...
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, but if this property is sold and the lease is binding and he did have authority, it doesn't matter. You can sell a property that's under lease.
That takes care of it, basically. Yeah. Selling it is the best way out of this.
The new owner will just take over the property and honour the lease. So that's how you do it. And obviously, if there's nothing in writing and it's usually a month-to-month tenancy, so usually you can terminate them with just 1 month's notice, right? And that's part of the process you will ask the court to do.
But you need the order. You need a court order to
sell,
make it happen. All right, okay. Yeah. We're going to leave you with that one. Thanks for the call, though, Shane. But, yeah, it sounds like you need to make those inquiries of a lawyer like David McMullen, as you sort of suggested in Subiaco, as to how to go about that through the Supreme Court. But it sounds like selling it is the way out of all of the other issues as well. Nick Maruchak's with me, MKI Legal. If you've got a question, 133 882, feel free to give us a call. We've still got time. It's 14 minutes to 12. Yeah, it's the Gary Adsett and Nick Maruchak show right now because he's here from MKI Legal to help you with any legal issues that you might have. 133 882. We could still squeeze in some calls. I do want to ask you about this, though. You heard me talking probably the other day with Kevin Townley. He's the managing director of a company called Little Ferry Co. They operate small ferries on the river. People have seen them around, I'm sure. And he had a situation. It was a strange situation where someone late in the evening was coming in to Elizabeth Quay to dock, and the boat, a boat clearly hit one of the ferries and has caused considerable damage. Now, the interesting point of this is that he believes and finds out subsequently, that there is some CCTV vision which could be used to identify the boat that hit one of his. But he's been told that he can't obtain a copy of any of that because of the sort of rules that govern the city of Perth in terms of their CCTV. What do you think? I mean, I must admit, when he was talking to me, I was thinking, no, there's always a way that you can get this, but I didn't quite know what it was at the time.
Yeah, there is a way, and this is a way that private parking places like that Wilson Parking, for example, when you park on their property, they get your rego, and then suddenly they send you a letter. Yeah. How do they get your details? They go to the Supreme Court to make an application, and this is what Kevin can do as well. So if something happened to you and you have a legal case against someone, which Kevin does, someone damaged his ferry, he can sue that person for negligence and all kinds of stuff. He can go to the Supreme Court and get discovery against either the police or the city of Perth. He just has to show that there is a reasonable basis, that they have information that helps him identify this potential perpetrator, right? So you have to prove two things. You have a claim and the other person has information that helps identify that person, right? So it's a simple application. You file an affidavit, just put it in writing, and then the Supreme Court will hear it and they will very likely release the information.
Is that likely to be a quick process? Out of interest? I mean, what do you...
A couple of months.
Okay.
Right. So it's not, you don't have this is not a trial or not you don't put anyone on the stand. It's all done on the papers, and that process generally kind of quick, generally cost effective. There might be a case where he might have to pay the City of Perth legal costs to some extent because they're an innocent party. They have to provide that, but that shouldn't be substantial, and he might get away with not paying it. So then he can get the CCTV footage that way.
Right. But then it gets in. Another interesting development, though, in that one, though, Nick, is that, see, because he's aware of what CCTV exists, he knows that there's no identifying number on the boat that is the sort of key to saying, well, it's, you know, AU582 is its registration number, so therefore it's owned by that person. Now, but he does know that the boat is sort of distinguishable enough that if he was to get the CCTV vision and put it up, say, on his little ferry company Facebook page and say, can anyone help me identify the owner of this boat? Is he allowed to do that?
So,
what do you think?
Yeah, so this is a lot of complexity here, but the Surveillance Devices Act of Western Australia prevents people from recording private conversations. Now, these CCTV footage recorded a public conversation. So the Surveillance Devices Act doesn't apply, because if you record a private conversation, it's illegal to actually record it and distribute it on Facebook.
Or imagery of something in public or private. That's the difference, isn't it? If something's happening in public,
it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously, City of Perth and the police will have their own internal privacy rules that says you can't distribute this. But once he gets it, I don't see a reason why he wouldn't be able to distribute this on Facebook. And when he's making his application to the court, he can also ask permission for the court as a plan B to have extra assurance to allow him to distribute that on Facebook so he can find the identity of this boat.
I suppose. Then he's got to be a bit careful because, of course, people might say, oh, yeah, that's Bob Smith's boat.
So he has to be careful of defamation, right? So it's when he posts it, he should have a process where people can provide the information to him in a private way, like an email address, send it to me, because as soon as you start doing this vigilante thing and people are getting falsely accused, that's when you run into all sorts of problems and you know, people can sue for defamation if they've been accused of a crime because that defames their character.
So don't put it up on Facebook and allow responses and replies to happen publicly.
Yep.
You need to just say it's a closed site, but here's an email address to. If you think you know who the owner of this boat is, please send it through to me and I'll check it out.
That's right, and that's protected from defamation. If you give someone information that they have the right to know and it's reasonable, then even if it's defamatory, there's a defence of qualified privilege, right? So that's the best way of doing it. Just don't post it publicly, just privately let him know. And then he might be able to find it. So that's the process he can go through to get this footage and potentially find this perpetrator. But it's a difficult task, and I feel for him.
I know. And the other one we were hoping for, maybe possibly, but we're not sure yet, is that the police could release it through their Crime Stoppers site and say, we're looking for the owner of this boat because it was involved in a serious incident. But that hasn't happened yet. Maybe they don't think it's serious enough. Possibly. It's only damage to another boat, not a human. But there you go.
Criminal damage.
All right. But that's one way to go about it. So, okay, we'll relay that to Kevin Townley, and I'll probably flick the Lord Mayor some details of the case too and see whether he's got a view on it when he joins me tomorrow. We've run out of time, mate. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Gary. It's been great.
But thanks very much for coming in. Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal. It's coming up to 4 minutes to 12 right now.